You're listening to Love is the Answer, a podcast that explores the power of love in real life, with your hosts, Lynn and Laurel Elstrom.
Welcome to Love is the Answer. I'm Laurel Elstrom with my co-host Lynn, and today we're going to be talking about something really fun, the transformational power of play, with our guest Angela Halvorsen Bogo.
And hi, it's Lynn. Love is the Answer is brought to you by Take Heart Publications, who is the publisher of A Course of Love and Choose Only Love. And you can find all of our ongoing Zoom study groups, as well as downloading the first 24 chapters of A Course of Love for free. And that's all on acourseoflove.org.
I have to give full disclosure, I have been a participant in one of your workshops, which is how I know about all the fun work that you do. And it was an absolute blast. I will never forget it. It was some of the most fun I've ever had with strangers I'd never met before. So I highly recommend your work. So Angela's a facilitator and performer with 30 years of experience using play, storytelling, movement, improvisation, meditation, and clowning to facilitate change both in individuals and in organizations. And she is passionate about using modern techniques to help people feel more conscious, more connected, and more alive. And she knows how to do it. Welcome, Angela.
Thank you. Hello. It's lovely to be here.
So we'd like to begin by asking you the first question that we ask all of our guests, and that is, what is love to you?
So my answer is very short. For me, love is what everything is made of, fundamentally. It's what the whole thing is.
It is indeed, yes. Thanks for that. So we really want to learn about play. I know everybody wants to bring more play into their lives. So let's start by working with the definition of it. What exactly is play, and why is it as important as adults to include play in our lives?
So play is often defined by people like me as anything that doesn't have a purpose and that we enjoy. So, for example, a game can become very serious if you're trying to win, and then you're not playing so much. Or any kind of creative, imaginative process can be playful when we allow ourselves to enjoy it, and when we're not trying to end up with a particular result. So it can be making up stories, can be writing, can be creating a world with a child with toys and trains and cars. It could be dancing for the pure joy of it. It can be improvising or dancing with other people in those kind of social interactions. It can be storytelling. For me, there's so much pleasure in being together in the unfolding of a story where we travel together in the imagination and energetically. It's delightful. And there are probably as many different ways to play as there are people, because we are all wired differently and there are different things that we really enjoy. But basically, it's this freedom to enjoy without having to produce a result.
That's the important part that a lot of us forget because we're so goal-oriented.
Yeah.
So we have to drop the goals, right?
And it's also really stamped out of us, practically everybody I've ever worked with has heard at some point in their upbringing, now it's not time to play anymore. Now you have to buckle down. Now you have to start studying. Now you have to grow up. Now you have to take things seriously, and so on. So the recovery process in the workshops like the one that you attended, the recovery is allowing ourselves to enjoy life. No reason, for no goal, but just that it is a birthright. We've lost it very often. And so we have to kind of expand into and allow ourselves to enjoy life.
Well, that kind of answers the question of why adults should do this. But have you seen what effect this has on people's lives when they learn how to play again?
I heard from a woman recently who's in her 80s, and she did a workshop similar to the one you did a number of years back. And I saw this woman, she was incredibly serious all the way through the workshop until the last day, when suddenly she had this breakthrough and she became literally like a little child. Something happened so fundamental, because when she was a child, she was not allowed to play. The transformation that happened in the workshop stayed with her, and she said that she's now enjoying her life and playing into the sunset in her late 50s.
What a great end of life gift.
So that's one result. They are reconnecting with themselves. And when they're reconnected with themselves, that can lead to all kinds of change. Suddenly people realize they're in the wrong job, they're living in the wrong place, they're in the wrong relationship, and they can see it, and they have the kind of energetic push to make the change. So lots of transition happens. So they say that nothing lights up the brain like play, nothing. So it's incredibly effective as a survival skill. For example, now we're having to navigate a difficult time of massive change and unknowns, and play can help evolve all sorts of skills and capacities for everyday life. And without it, now this is what happens when we have it, but without it, we tend to become overly serious, heavy, depressed. We give up, we stop engaging in life, we minimize our possibilities. Life becomes kind of small and dry.
You kind of touched on it already. And we're talking a little bit before we started about play being that space of it's kind of like creativity and expansiveness. So I wanted to ask you, what exactly for you personally, if you could share what is happening with you, what kind of experience do you have during play?
So I play for a living. I play a lot. I play when I'm engaged with other people. I play as a clown. I play as a storyteller. What happens to me is that I become, and the older I get, the deeper this gets, is I become more and more present and more aware in the present of what is happening in it. My sensing apparatus has developed a lot. I can feel a lot more. I can see a lot more. I'm just experiencing more of life because I'm present. I think this is something that happens to many people as we get connected to this, to the limitless possibility, to the mystery, to the quantum field, whatever language it is that you like to use. We are aligned with it. Anything can happen.
Since we are in that social situation of the pandemic, our social circles have become really small. So I'm wondering, is it essential to have somebody to play with? Is there a way that you can play by yourself? And if so, can you share with us some ideas of how to do that?
Yes, you can. You can engage with your body, move your body, walk, dance, stretch, be out in nature or be outside your front door or open a window, whatever it is that your situation allows. So have some connection with nature and be in your body. This would be like the first layer, I would say. And then start to notice the things that give you delight. And they can be, just to notice what it feels like to wash your hands with warm water and soap and actually be in that moment, rather than think of it as a doing that I have to get past as fast as possible. Or to really enjoy a shower. Like, instead of doing the shower as quick as you can, how can the shower be the most delightful start of the day? These are the things that young children do naturally. They are in this state, and we are allowed to be in this state as well. I would say write yourself a fun prescription. So if you were the doctor of yourself, what would you prescribe for you for today, for this week, for this month? And don't wait for others to do it for you. I think this is one of the big gifts of the pandemic, is that many of us are thrown back onto our own resources and we can't rely so much on other people. So you activate, write yourself a prescription and then follow it. Maybe you need more sleep, maybe you need to get up earlier. What did you do as a child that you loved? Maybe you like to doodle, listening to music. Maybe you like to sit and read a book for 6 hours. Maybe you can enjoy every mouthful of food. Maybe you can, there's many, many things that we can enjoy. And when we start to enjoy the small things, those have a tendency to be able to expand and grow into play. And those are just the things that you can do in everyday life on your own. But there's an absolute plethora of opportunities online now. Everybody's offering workshops and all sorts of things. You could do something that you used to do in person and sign up for something like that. You could try something you've never done to just be in the zone of taking risks. It does something for your brain. When we are not always doing exactly the same thing, something starts to wake up and shake us up. So trying new things, however ridiculous.
Just to remind, your essential ingredient of play is that you're doing something that you enjoy with no agenda.
Yeah.
Is that what we're looking for when we're...
That is what you're looking for. Yeah.
Okay.
A few years ago, just you talking about playing like right where you're at now, like in home, I made a fort with my sofa. I turned my sofa upside down, and I actually invited a friend over. He brought his camping equipment, and we made a tent with my sofa, and we crawled in, and we had a fort, and we played just like kids. That was really fun. That was something that spontaneously somebody kept saying, make a fort with your couch and play. And I was like, okay. This was a time I was kind of like going through sort of like a downtime and whatever. It was so much fun though. And he brought camping equipment. We just play like kids. And we did we drew. We also had colors, and we painted and we drew. And it was so much fun. And it was just, there was nothing to it. It was just turning a sofa upside down and just playing like kids, and it was fun, and we made a fort. So yeah, I get what you're saying. There's a lot of innovative ways. I love that. You said write your own prescription. That was mine for that day.
And so if you were to look at what was your energy like, what was your state of mind like in the hours after you played, because it has an effect on the whole being. The play itself is great fun, but it also kind of changes the direction of the day.
As you're talking, it creates this idea in my mind between coming from the spiritual teaching aspect. And there is the eternal self, the part that doesn't change, that we can access, and that feels really good in meditation and so on. But what you're talking about, I think, is where that and the character in this world, in this story that we're living, connect. They intersect.
Yeah.
And so we are bringing that aspect into the body.
Exactly.
And that's why it's so exhilarating, is because we get to be reconnected, putting those two pieces of ourselves together. Yeah. I like it a lot.
Exactly. Some of us who've been or are more contemplatively oriented, more introverted, have perhaps a world to explore inside, but everybody can access that world and get to know it better. And it's limitless what's going on in that direction. And there's a lot of fun to be had. It doesn't all have to be super serious, or when I say super spiritual, I say that in that kind of prescribed or heavy way. It can be just pure delight.
That's where the no agenda comes in. That's the essential component that I need to remember. I know that.
Living with new eyes.
It's a shame that I feel like we've lost a lot of us have lost that touch with the inner child and that freedom to just be who we are with no agenda in this moment, without a purpose, as you say.
Well, fortunately, we have a living example of the fact that it is possible to recover it.
I know.
She is.
I think it's time to move on now. We'll go with our question of the week. And here it is. Lately, I've been experiencing loneliness more frequently than I used to. How is love the answer to my recurring feelings of loneliness and isolation?
Well, when I feel lonely and isolated, I see that as an invitation. There is something happening where I feel I'm experiencing myself as separate and disconnected. And I know that that's not true. So when I feel this loneliness and isolation, then what I do is I sit myself down and I start to see all the ways that that is not true. I would be grateful for the room I'm sitting in, and it just kind of expands from there. So I feel like those kinds of extreme, difficult feelings are always, if we know how to go through them, if we have some tools to go through them.
I experience too, and when that happens, there's a recognition that I know I'm not separate, and yet the feeling is there. So I have noticed, because I feel like even though it's true, I know I'm not separate, I have a responsibility to this character to take care of her, to practice self care. So if the character that I'm playing and the story is feeling separated, I agree. I think there are things that I can do, some tools, like one of which is get out, go see somebody, even if it's just a little trip to the store, even if it's a walk up and down the street, even if it's going to sit in nature for 10 minutes. I think it's important to acknowledge and recognize that that's not true and prove it to yourself. Call somebody, write a letter. I think that that's self-love and self-care. We can acknowledge, I know I'm not separate on an intellectual level, and on a practical level, take care of ourselves too.
What you guys are saying, what often comes up for me is loneliness. It's not the same thing as being alone. It's like for me, I can be alone a lot of times and not feel lonely. And sometimes it's a joy to be alone. It's peace, But then again, as you guys were saying, there's something that comes up at times, and I don't know what it is that brings it on. It's a sense of being disconnected. Mm-hmm. Even though, as you say, intellectually, we know we're always connected to everything. There's no separation. So something does arise, a sense of disconnection, and I'm not sure what exactly brings it on. But what I will say is, similarly to what you guys are saying, it's an invitation to the self-love and love being the answer. I feel like it's a longing deep within for connection. And it's about reaching out and taking care of myself and being okay with asking for help, reaching out, picking up the phone, calling a friend. And like we were talking earlier about all the Zoom groups that we have now online, because this pandemic, it's basically thrown us all back within ourselves. We can reach out. There's so many communities right now that are online that have these Zoom groups that people live stream on Facebook, they live stream on YouTube. And I actually went to a friend of mine, a band music streamed online recently on Facebook, which is very nice. And I went to that and I met new people. I got friend requests on Facebook. It was just so nice to be able to sit there with a live chat, something I wasn't even expecting. I just went to hear the music. So there's a lot of ways that I know that I can reach out. The pandemic, as we said, has caused us all to go virtual pretty much. But again, it's something we can do. It's not that we're alone. There's plenty of communities out there. And then, yeah, sometimes too, I like to go for a walk or something. And that helps me feel connected with nature and animals, kind of like all the above. And you were going to say something, Angela.
Yeah, there's another part of it is becoming a better mother or parent to that part of myself that sometimes is saying it's lonely or isolated, but actually it just needs us to go home and do nothing for an hour, needs to curl up on the sofa, needs a rest, needs food, needs to go to bed. Very often it feels, the first layer of that shows up like that in me, and it's because I need to look after. There's a whining part of me that needs taking care of, and it will carry on unless I take care of, of her.
Mm-hmm. And there's also a component that I'm feeling when I'm listening to you guys, that we're really in relationship with something all the time. We're in relationship with our thoughts and our feelings. As you pointed out, Angela, we're always in relationship with our body. We always have the opportunity to be more intimate in any of those relationships. So I guess it is a combination of things, and we can remember that relationships are not limited to beings in two different bodies, although that is part of it, and that's very fun. But I can be in relationship with whatever I'm experiencing right now as well. I can be intimate there, because that's really what we want, is intimacy. I guess that winds us up close, but I want to take a moment, Angela, to ask you if there's anything that you'd like to add. I know you were talking about giving us an opportunity, so we'd like to hear about that, and anything that you feel like hasn't been covered in our discussion today about play.
I would like to invite people who have listened to this podcast to a taster session, and I'm going to provide a link so that you can find your way to that. There are a lot of different online offerings that I have, and if you like the taster, you might go further into something, and you will meet and play with people from all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
I did a workshop recently, and what was amazing was you could see the different light and darkness around the world. So somebody was 2:30 in the morning in Australia, and somebody else was getting up in Europe, and somebody else was, it was just mind-bogglingly amazing how we are connected across the world. Yes, so there is that. And then there's also another thing, which is there's a month-long storytelling festival, and I'm leading the opening of that. Normally it happens in India, and this year it's online, so everybody can come. The whole thing is entirely free.
Oh.
So I'll put a link for that as well. And storytelling online works very well online, and you can be endlessly transported and entertained.
So we'll have Angela's website listed, and then we'll have the link that she's going to create for everyone to get a taste of the play. It'll be free. And then you'll also give us this other link you were just referring to, right, Angela?
I will, yes.
Okay, perfect.
All right, great. Well, we look forward to that, and I just have to add that having been a participant in your workshops, I really encourage people to pursue it. It's so worth it and so much fun. Thank you so much for being with us today. I think it's a great time to talk about playing, and we can all use more play in our lives. So be sure to reach Angela. Thanks to our listeners for joining us today.
Yeah, so again, thank you, Angela, for joining us. It was really a delight to meet you. And thanks, too, for all of our listeners. And I hope this was a meaningful podcast for everyone.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Bye-bye.
Have fun playing.